It's time to talk about the Chicago Bears. Chicago, the Bears. And let me tell you, I look forward to all of these team previews, but this one in particular, very interesting and one of the more challenging teams to project into this season. I'll obviously get more into that. But these Chicago Bears had a lot of changes this offseason, a lot of potential. So let's get to it. First of all, just talking about what they did last season. They didn't turn over the ball much. Big time credit to Caleb Williams because they were the most sacked team in the NFL last season. Right? He was beaten, battered. If you watched the Chicago Bears team, you saw him just getting whacked left and right. Uh, obviously their biggest need for improvement was protecting Caleb Williams, and they did a lot in the offseason to help solve that. But they didn't turn over the ball much. And so a lot of that is Caleb being smart in those situations and creating plays in those situations, which we've seen many times already, even in his rookie campaign. But nearly every aspect of their offense overall was poor, some average. So just not very good in most categories, except for in the red zone. Again, more Caleb Williams, but they made things happen and scored touchdowns in the red zone. Let's see here. So obviously, the biggest change for the Chicago Bears is Ben Johnson. New coach coming from Detroit, their offensive coordinator. In the last few seasons, he has led the Lions to historic marks with their offense. Last year in particular, 564 total points scored by Detroit. That is the fourth most in NFL history and the most ever by a Lions team. So Ben Johnson knows what he's doing, and a lot of that was because of his symbiotic relationship with Jared Goff. And you saw that play out a little bit if you watched Quarterback on Netflix. Netflix, where's my promo money for saying that? That show kind of showed how Jared Goff could give his input. He could challenge Ben Johnson's notions. He could offer his own plays that he wants to run. And then it kind of went back and forth, right? They had a respect for each other. So that's what made it symbiotic, right? There was chemistry. It worked well on both ends. It is not a guarantee that that's going to happen with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, a kid who, he comes from a lot of money already, right? Because of all the endorsements, all the acclaim coming into the NFL, the number one pick, and obviously just a lot of confidence, right? And we saw some of that confidence wane last season when you start playing for an NFL team and you get beaten up. That is what happens, but it's just not a guarantee because Ben Johnson, although he's very good at creating successful offenses, he did it with Jared Goff and he did it under Dan Campbell. He did it under a great culture in Detroit. Campbell primarily setting the tone of that culture, grit and all the things they talk about. They're a successful operation over there in Detroit for many reasons. So can Ben Johnson create the same culture in Chicago, and will Caleb Williams be the same student and have the same reciprocity as Jared Goff had with Ben Johnson? That is the big question here. But certainly you want a coach like Ben Johnson who's going to be focused on the offense and focused on a potential superstar in Caleb Williams, who clearly, the way that he creates plays, the way that he runs around the field, and just takes up more and more time behind the line of scrimmage, even though he should be hit, and he eventually finds a guy. It's very Patrick Mahomes. It's very Josh Allen. Like, he's got those intangibles, and he's got those physical attributes. So you want a coach like Ben Johnson who can bring out the most in him. Remains to be seen, obviously. We're hearing about a few tiffs from the media reporting on how maybe him and Ben Johnson aren't seeing eye to eye just yet, but these things take time to materialize, and we'll see as the season goes on. And obviously their offensive line, I got to talk about these guys because they are significant upgrades to the Lions' offensive line. They brought in Joe Thuney, longtime Chiefs All-Pro. They brought in center Drew Dahlman from Atlanta, homegrown Atlanta offensive lineman, center, smart guy. Doesn't get like the highest pass protection ratings in the NFL, but he's good. He's formidable. He's stable. Doesn't get injured. And Jonah Jackson from Detroit and Los Angeles last year, the Rams. And then they spent draft capital on a second round left tackle as well. So a lot of change in that offensive line. That's a lot of movement. It's a lot to figure out before a season begins, right? totally new offensive line, new coach, but it's what you want. It's what you want for Caleb Williams. Now their defense, particularly bad against the run. Signs of improvement in pass defense, but still average overall. They were shockingly good on fourth down conversions, fifth place overall in preventing fourth down conversions in the NFL last season, and third in red zone defense. So showing that they can be up to par when they need to. They have a young secondary, but a hungry secondary. And they bring in, obviously, Dennis Allen. They also brought in defensive end Grady Jarrett from Atlanta as well to help with that pass rush. They were mid last year, like 13th. But Dennis Allen, former coach of the Saints, now he's not there anymore, obviously. This is his chance, his shot at revenge. And I think he's just a better coordinator than he is a coach. We heard some whispers down in Nolens about just not being a culture guy, not a guy that players really like. Well, that might be a good fit for Chicago, right? Because he has that old school, aggressive, like 4-3 defense, man coverage, downhill type of mentality as a defensive coach. And that's what you expect from a Chicago Bears defense, right? Like that's what we've seen from the Bears of the past. So I think he's a really good fit. Again, it's a roster that's maturing and that needs improvement, but even if they can just hold teams to an average amount of points, even if they're average, if things start to work on the other end with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson working together with a talented group of wide receivers, they're all coming back. This is a great group. The sky's the limit here for Chicago offensively, and I think on defense, we're seeing some things here that suggest that this could be a much better unit on defense too. A little more favoring improvement on offense, but we'll see about the defense. But again, even if the defense is just average, Chicago Bears can be in a lot of these games. Now, the reason why this is so challenging is you look at Caleb Williams, you look at the superstar potential, he's a phenom, and you look at all the changes that they made for the positive in the offseason, and you say, well, it could be a playoff team, right? Yeah, they could be. But this is a very, very difficult schedule. Like I would say it's more difficult than a lot of analysts project. Number one, they're in the NFC North, right? Like no team is bad in the NFC North. The Vikings were 14-3 with a quarterback that they let go in Sam Darnold in the offseason. Okay, they were 14-3 last season. The Lions were right there with them, the number one seed. And obviously the Packers, like there's a lot of analysts out there who say the Packers are going to or can win the Super Bowl this season. I don't agree with that, but you see the potential there for Green Bay too. There's some studs on offense. They got to get better on defense, but this is a great division, the NFC North. So the Bears have to face these guys 6 times, right? And then other than their own division, which is hard enough, they got Dallas, Vegas will be better under Pete Carroll. Washington, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Philly, and San Francisco. They also have an early bye week in week 5, which if I'm a coach, if I'm a player, I would hate that, right? Like a week 5 bye week, like unless you're 0-4, unless you have a lot to figure out right away, I don't think it's very beneficial. Now, we only can count 3 games where we expect them to win: Saints, Giants, and Browns. And they're at home for all those games. And this is a more talented team than what any of those teams offer right now. But that's it. We give them 3 wins that we expect them to have next season. This is a very, very difficult schedule. I mean, in the hard teams that I just talked about, that's 8 teams alone, 6 teams in the division, right? So we're talking 14 games are possible losses, right? And I would say many of those teams are in a better situation than they are. Not Dallas, not Vegas, probably not Cincinnati, but Joe Burrow. I'm taking Joe Burrow over any quarterback in the NFL if things are going well there. So this is a chance that this is a much improved team. There's a chance that they make the playoffs, but I'm certainly not going to jump on that bandwagon just yet. I think we could see them thrive more offensively. I certainly think we can see them as a better ATS team. They're 8-7-2 last season, so above 500, but not very much so. I think they could be a 10 or 11 win ATS team, but their season win total is 8.5, And I have a lean to the under there. I'm not going to make a bet on it. I could see both ways. But if we're looking at just what we know about the Bears now, what their struggles were last season, and expecting a quick turnaround, right? That's a lot, right? It's like saying that the New England Patriots are going to turn around and go right to the playoffs and be a real threat in the AFC. The Bears are in a really tough situation, schedule wise, environment wise, right? But now they have more of the core that they need. I give them a power rating of 77 overall. For the people of Chicago, for the fans of Chicago, and I have quite a few in my life, I hope the Bears are a formidable program this season. But I still lean under an 8.5 wins, and I think they still need a little bit more time to get to that point. Next up is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. See you there.